Pillar 3. In apologetic action. If we are diligent in our practice of Pillar 1 and 2, the volume of our external body shame can over time become a light buzz, while our own resounding voice of radical self-love begins to ring loudly in our ears. There is no better time to get started on the doing portion of this work. Radical self-love is a muscle, and get started of the doing portion of this work. Radical self-love is muscle, and as with every other muscle, if we do not work it, atrophy will set in. Living in a world of body terrorism is like having our sense of value and innate worth set in a placer cast for decades. Cracking open the cast and moving through the world in tune with our bodies can feel like working out our trapezius muscle. What the discomfort and fear. Remember, most of the fear is just fog. It is difficult to deeply love a stranger. Familiarity breeds foodness. Pillar 3, in apologetic action, asks us to get to know these bodies of ours. If you have been avoiding looking at or touching your body, this is your chance to shift. By now, we understand our avoidance of being intimate with our bodies as part of being conditional, to believe that our bodies are bad, wrong, or disgusting. No one wants to hang out with a bad, drunk body. As we clear out those thoughts, we are better able to see our bodies for what they truly are. Amazing vessels capable of awesome feelings, sensations, and experiences. By getting to know them, we open ourselves to deeper levels of pleasure, care, and ultimately radical love. Pillar 3 invites you to take yourself on a body expedition and discover your own remarkable landscape. Not only have we avoided intimately knowing our bodies, we have forgotten that our bodies like doing stuff, walking, dancing, running, having sex. Body shame has served our love of activity, and the chronicle of body shame movement became a thing we avoided lest we jiggle while in motion. An apologetic action is our departure from those old stories, prompting us to reconnect to the joys of movements. Many of us cannot recall a time when moving our bodies was something other than a way to punish them for failing to meet society's fictionist ideals. But just as we were once babies who loved our bodies, we were also babies who loved moving them. We can invite ourselves back to this place. There was magic there. Pillar 3 is not singularly focused on our physical selves. It also summons us to new actions by telling ourselves new stories. In Chapter 2, we discussed the characteristics of our early memories of body shame. We acknowledged how the thing we were teased about or shamed for became part of how we saw ourselves later in life. Those early incidents became the yarn tethering our adult self to our childhood histories of shame and isolation. An apologetic action empowers us to make new stories better than the ones we've been saddled with for years. Humans have made up stories since the beginning of time. Some of the stories have helped us understand this wild ride through humanity, whereas whereas others have kept us cut off from radical self-love. We no longer must be bound by crappy stories. Humans made them up. You are human. Make a better story. Take an apologetic action on a regular basis with tools 6, 7, 8 in chapter 5. Pillar 4, collective compassion. In the beginning of my workshop, I tell participants that they can do everything I say. Employ the 3 pieces in every area of their life. Trace their body shame, origin story, back its inception. Denounce the body shame profit complex from the highest rooftop and rock the first 3 pillars like nobody's business. But if they avoid pillar 4, collective compassion, then radical self-love will continue to elude them. Every word in this book is unsustainable without the 4th pillar. Collective compassion is the being part of radical self-love. It is our internal compass, quickly alerting us when we are off course. Not only does collective compassion provide an internal structures of governance, i.e., the rules that guide our personal work, it is also the bridge to the socially transformative power of radical self-love. Collective compassion offers directions for how we ought to treat ourselves, but importantly, it is our directive of being with others. Have you ever run into someone many years after the last time you saw them, only to discover that they had undergone some phenomenal inner transformation? I'm not looking I'm not talking about weight loss or new haircut. I'm talking a brand new life. Perhaps they got sober after years of addiction. Maybe they healed a relationship that appeared completely irreparable from the outside. Whatever the transformation, when you saw them, you were flabbergasted. I am guessing our next thought was not, hey, I could totally do that. For most human transformations does not seem achievable from the distant shores of another person's life. Far, far away. From far away, transformations looks like a miracle or the result of magical powers possessed by the transformed person. Transformation is not magic. It's hard work, but it is also doable work. When we can see another person's labor toward their transformation, we know it's not some secret source, but instead it's a daily commitment to a new way of life. Up close, we can also see that they are not doing the work alone. Transformation and healing demand that we open ourselves up to others. For many of us, this is the highest hurdle of the radical self-love road. Body shame and body terrorism have made us profoundly distressing. We've been judged and mocked too many times. We have vowed to never subject ourselves to such hurt again. I want you to know, I understand, but learning to trust others is invisible from learning to trust yourself. You will need to practice both to get back to radical self-love. If you are working to get rid of yourself of years of body shame by being Clark Kent in a phone booth, I'm sorry, love, but you will not come out as Superman. You are going to need someone to lean against while you pull up those tights. Truthfully, radical self-love is not the work of superheroes, but of community and connection. Pillar 4 asks you to move beyond self-reliance to collective care. We must learn to be with each other if we plan to get free. Before body shame stripped us of our inherent sense of self-worth, it stripped us of compassion. We saw failure in every mirror. We judged out our every thought. We berated and abused ourselves because we were berated and abused by others. We thought the outside voice was our own, and we let in run roughshod over our lives. And then we judged ourselves for judging ourselves, trapped on a hamster wheel of self-flagellation. Oh, oh, honey, that is no way to live. Without compassion for ourselves, we will never stay on the road of radical self-love. Without compassion to others, we can only replicate the world we have always known. Radical self-love is not about getting it right. It's getting it right. It's a body shame paragram. Radical self-love is honoring how we are all products of a rigged system designed to keep us stuck in stigma and shame. The only way to beat that system is by giving ourselves something the system will never: compassion. The 4 pillars of practice will support our personal radical self-love journey, offering light around along the road and helping us connect course when needed. If you use them in conjunction with the tools outlined in chapter 5, you will have much of what you need to build a daily thinking, doing, and being routine of radical self-love. I'm totally jazzed for you, really, but our work together is not done. Now that we have done the work to transform our lives, it's time to take on the world. Chapter 4: A New Day Ordered by Love. A word for our bodies is a word for our bodies. Perhaps you have missed it thus far. But I have an agenda to which I am obnoxiously wedded. It's a simple agenda. I want to change the world by convincing you to love every facet of yourself, radically and unapologetically. Convince even the parts you don't like. And through this book, illustrate for you how radical love alters our planet. Radical self-love is an internal process offering external transformation. How we show up to life reflects how we show up to ourselves. When we strip away the veneer of self-reliance and individualism and allow ourselves access our most vulnerable truth, we can't help but be heartbeat present to the fact that our relationship with other bodies mirrors in tangible ways our relationship with our own body. Yes, we have been cutting and cruel to ourselves and have watched our internalized shame spill over into how we parent, how we manage employees, how we show up to friends and family. Yes, we believed that our bodies were too big, too dark, too pale, too scared, too ugly. So we thought, folded, hid ourselves away and wondered why our lives looked infinitesimally smaller than what we knew we were capable of. Yes, we have been less vibrant employees, less compassionate neighbors, less tolerant of the bodies of others, not because we are bad people, but because we are guilty of each of those counts against ourselves. Our lens to the outside world is an interior lens projecting our experience in our bodies into our external landscape. A shame clouded interior lens can only project shame and judgment. Employing a radical self love in ethos is like squirting Windex on our daily lives. Suddenly, we can see ourselves as employees or employers, as parents and friends, as neighbors and community members, as leaders, thinkers, doers, as humans distinctly connected to other humans. Applying radical self-love to each facet of these roles and responsibilities alters the very fabric of humanity, ultimately creating a more just, equitable, and compassionate world. Radical reflection: the least compassionate politicians and the most rigid authority figure are demonstrating to us how they are with themselves. We can practice compassion for them while demanding accountability from them. Speaking French and implicit bias. Bridging the gap between radical self love and radical human love may feel like a Herculean task. Sonia, it is hard enough to try this radical self love stuff on myself. Now you want me to love the world? What am I proposing is that radical human love is not an altruistic endeavor. We want a world that works for our bodies. There is one superhighway free of the debris of body shame and terror that gets us there. And that is radical human love. This means we must become an architect of a world that works for everybody and everybody. Our responsibility to humanity is to unearth the world in which we have been sabotaging the blueprints and thwarting the radical self-love efforts of others. Right this moment, we are sauntering across someone's radical self-love path like a lumbering bobbing. Removing ourselves as a barrier to other folks' radical self-love only becomes possible when we are willing to fear-facingly examine our beliefs. It is not enough to transform our relationship with our physical and emotional selves and leave the world around us unexamined and unaltered. Messages we received about the validity and invalidity of our own bodies did not occur in a vacuum. We were simultaneously receiving and spreading those messages. Dismantling oppression and our role in it demands that we explore where we have been complicit in the system of body terrorism while employing body shame. While employing the same compassion we needed to explore our complexity in our internalized body shame. Regrettably, this is where too many of us choose to exit the radical self-love train. We desperately want our good intention and niceness to be for and treated with respect. Our efforts to raise systems of oppression and injustice will require more than our niceness. But I am a good person. I am nice to everyone. Has never toppled one systemic inequality, nor interrupted the daily acts of body terrorism leveled against humans throughout history. You can, you are enough. Being good or nice is not. In apologetic inquiry number 22, think of 3 times when your choice to be nice or polite made you complicit in body shame or body terrorism. Why do we avoid looking at the ways in which we uphold systems of body shame and terror? For that exact same reasons, we avoid exploring uncomfortable thoughts about our own bodies and lives. We are in a constant struggle to distinguish and undocumentate beliefs and behaviors from our true, radically self-loving beings. Remember that we are not the sum of our thoughts or even actions. When we fail to make the distinction, we avoid exploring our ideas and continue to cause harm to ourselves and others. Seeing our thoughts and behaviors as parts and not the whole of us allows us to transform our way of being with other bodies. In my 10 Tools of Radical Self-Love workshops, I describe our unconscious collusion with the system of body terrorism using the example of French. If you were born into a francophone family at around 6 to 8 months of age, you would utter your first mumbling word. Likely it would be mère, mother, ou père, father. Your language would be an extension of the world around you, which would likely consist of your French-speaking primary caregivers. Between 18 months and 2 years of age, you would develop sentences. Again, those sentences would reflect the language you had been immersed in since birth. Unless your caregivers spoke or regularly exposed you to other languages, you undoubtedly would still be speaking French, even without ever having picked up a book or taken a single class. You would become a fluent French speaker as you were exposed to more information, resources, and social systems, all in French. You would gain even greater proficiency. Your default language would be French. You would think your thoughts in French. If you desired to learn a new language, you would have to study it, take classes, practice speaking it with others who had attitude. It would take effort. On occasion, despite your new linguistic pursuits, you would return to speak in French. You might even be subconsciously translating new language back to French. Likely, no matter how proficient you became in another language, even if you stopped speaking French altogether, sometimes you would still think in French. Body terrorism is our universal native tongue, our French. We learned the language in our formative years. We were the small child in the grocery store from chapter 2, learning the language of ableism and being taught by our mothers to scurry off and whisper in shame and secrecy about the disabled bodies. We were 5 years old, ballerinas in dance class, being told by our teacher that we must wear nude tights with our leotard, only to discover that the default for nude in every store was pink or tan. never brown. It was in that class that we learned the default hierarchy of white bodies. We were children in school cafeteria singing Fatty Fatty 2 by 4 can't fit through the kitchen floor, the kitchen door, or chanting Keisha Keisha bald spots on the bus, whether we chanted or sang along or not. We knew with certainty that we never wanted to be the people in those bodies being targeted. We learned the language of fatophobia and waist stigma, the language of difference shaming. We were becoming fluent in body terrorism, either as perpetrators or inactive bystanders, not because we were bad people, but because we were in an immersion school of body shame. As adults, we have likely done much in disengage from the overtly callous messages we received about many bodies, but without an intentional free dive into the subconscious ways in which we still adhere to those beliefs, enact them in our lives, and project them into bodies of others. We will continue to speak body terrorism, French, whether we want to or not. Radical reflection. When we practice awareness, we will notice that we speak French all day long. What is that person wearing? She is too big to wear that. He needs to stop being such a wimp. The only way to stop speaking French is to notice when we are. Researchers have a term for a phenomenon I'm describing with my French analogy: implicit bias. The term refers to the attitude of stereotypes that affect our understanding, actions, and decisions in an unconscious manner. Implicit bias can be favorable and or unfavorable, but it's a key component in that it is involuntary without an individual's conscious awareness or control. If you are prone to a heightened need for control, the concept of implicit bias might make your head explode. What do you mean? I'm thinking things I don't think I'm thinking? I know it can be maddening. Our brains are highly sophisticated organs, encoding trillions of responses that control everything from scratching your head to jumping when someone startles you. Our embedded behaviors are so vast it would be impossible to notice them all. However, we do have the ability to raise some of these functions to conscious awareness. Early on, we discussed this theory of in-group, out-group bias. This theory can help us understand the origins of implicit bias and see its interruption as a pivotal tool in dismantling a world of body terrorism. Humans are predisposed to social categorization. We subconsciously evaluate who is a part of our group, and who is not. This assignment happened within seconds, directly our subsequent engagement and influencing our treatments of others. These bias most generously benefit the bodies we consider normal, while fettering millions of folks on the path of radical self-love. None of us are solely culprit of solely victims. We all get bit of what we give. Each person in society is obstructing someone's road to radical self-love, while simultaneously being obstructed on their own road. An examined implicit bias upholds the hierarchy of bodies in our society, reaffirming our system of default bodies and codifying structures of body-based oppression. Implicit bias proves that just we have internalized messages of body shame, so too have we been willful and unintentional agents of body terrorism. Through the exploration of how body shame has obstructed our own path, and by making a personal commitment to the creation of a just and compassionate world, we open up the fear-facing examination of how our indoctrination has hindered the paths of others. Systems and structures of body terrorism are constructed, governed, and operated by humans, that is, by us. We build them, and only our intentional, concentrated efforts to deconstruct body terrorism in ourselves and our world will tear them down.